It will be.
Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. You've caught Kevin and I having a wee chat, a wee pre-match chat there, Kev. I'm Paul John Dykes, as you know. I'm joined by, again, the old school partner in crime, Kevin Graham. How are you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Not too bad. It's pre-season, eh? Me and you seem to be first ones in the building. And
First ones in the building, doing a wee
Aye.
30-minute CV session before the rest of the troops arrive. Talking to
Definitely,
CV
eh?
or CCV. Plenty to talk about today, Kev. Plenty to discuss. We'll start off with Cameron Carter-Vickers. We have been talking about him for most of the last season, but particularly that chat has heightened during the pre-season because I think we were all kind of desperate to make that loan deal permanent. I tweeted the other day, got a wee bit of traction about how it's about time Celtic started using the loan market better. What I meant by that is you look at the 3 loan deals that we brought in last season, Kev. 2 of them have already been turned into permanent deals. Jota, I'm sure all the work's been done behind the scenes. That is a new approach. That's not something Celtic have been doing over the last decades. Would you agree or disagree there?
No, I think the last one they'd done it with, a loan before you buy, was probably Fraser Foster and Neil Lennon's first tenure as Celtic.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. I mean, I don't even think like Ella Housey, am I going to say it like that?
Just call him Mo.
I don't even think Mo had an option to buy. I think even when they were going to bring him back, it was going to come back on loan. Even the last time when the whole Craig Gordon scenario that in the summer we ended up with Barkas, I don't even think Fraser Foster was coming back permanently. I think it was just another loan deal.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, as you say. You look back of it over the years, how many guys that we could have maybe kept. Big Jason Denier's one that stands out. That if we could have got an option to purchase, would have been great at a decent price. But a lot of these guys, Denier. I mean, obviously Man City had hopes for the Denier as well, and I mean, you look at Cameron Carter-Vickers. We're his 7th or 8th loan club, I think. No, 100% sure how many it is. Tottenham are ghosting him, ain't they? He's got no future at Tottenham, so it's an easy conversation to have with Tottenham. It could have been more difficult if they knew that there was maybe bigger bids than that coming in, but they were quite happy to get that deal over the line at the last minute. At the end of last season. Obviously it's benefited us and it's benefited the player. It has benefited the player. Jota's like maybe slightly different because he could still have a conversation with Benfica. He could still be having a conversation with Benfica. I don't think so.
No, sorry, you're back. Good, mate.
Aye, we're good. I mean, Jota could be having a conversation with Benfica there, to say, because he might still.
He's on his holiday wearing the hoops.
I know. I found that quite.
If he was going to Benfica, we're looking for every nuance. We're looking for every single detail, and in the hope that Jota joins Carter-Vickers and signing permanently, aren't we?
It was the same with Josip Juranovic. He was pictured wearing the Celtic training gear in a gym in Dubai. Did they just take their gear with them?
I love all that though, because obviously I love the old Celtic hoarding game in terms of jerseys and tracksuits and all that kind of stuff, Kev. And I do remember Didier Agat when he left his property in Dunfermline. He stayed in Dunfermline when he played with Celtic, bizarrely. And when he left his property, there was pictures in the paper because he'd left it like a pigsty, but it was all training kit and Celtic jerseys and all that. And I'm thinking, if I can get in touch with that estate agent, he's maybe going to give me all that gear, but it probably ended up in a skip, right? But it ended in the local newspaper about the Celtic star who had just left this house like a cow sty. Anyway, the Carter-Vickers thing for me, I says the other week there, I was talking to, I'm going to say it, I was talking to Chalky. And I had heard a few comparisons being made, and this is a big one, but I've heard a few comparisons being made on here, not by Acsom contributors, but by the commenters, that a few of the Acsom viewers thought that Carter Vickers put them in mind of Paul McGrath. Now, I know straight away people are spitting their tea out on the TV because Paul McGrath was a world-class player. But I think what they meant was the style, the actual style. He never ever seems as though he's under pressure, Kev, because he, for me, his positional play and his awareness is so good that he's very much in control at all times. He's very cool. He very rarely has to go into top gear to try and chase back unless someone else in the team has made an error. So I think that was the kind of comparison that people had made. Chalky told me never to mention the two players in the same sentence ever again. That's fine. He played with McGrath, so he knows better. But I think what we've got on our hands, you're right, this is Carter Vickers' 8th club, so we were his 7th loan deal. He had never played as much football as he had done for Celtic, for any other club. It was a match made in heaven. He said himself, the support that we got as a team was amazing, and that was definitely part of it. Talking about his decision to come to Celtic, 4-year contract, Kev, 24 years of age, so you've got all that sell-on value, etc., that I know the club finds very important. £6.3 million is the reported transfer fee with add-ons, up to a reported £10 million with add-ons. But I do think that when you're looking at the 3 deals, compared to a plethora of players that have come and gone, Kev, short-term, the short-termism of a deal for Wakaso or Tonev or Inga Berget or John Joe Kenny or Shane Duffy. I mean, dozens and dozens of players of that ilk who came into Celtic. And the argument that some people seem to have online was, but we won the league, so it worked. We weren't left with the players, so it worked. They weren't great, but we never signed them. I just find that whole thing short-termism. And I think that if we're going to bring in a player on loan, it's not to fill a gap. It's with a view to buying them in and getting the deal done, etc. And I think that this is a statement intent by Celtic. But at the same time, I'm also going to look at the fact that if we do get in Jota for probably the same money, right, £6 million plus, Kev, we've spent 12 to 13 million quid. And then we start looking at everything else we need to do. And it goes back to that broadcast that we had the other week there. Will Celtic be spending £25 million in one transfer window? Mm-hmm. Are we going to be utilising the loan market again? So we bring in Jota, CCV, plus maybe 3 loanees. Do you think that's a risky strategy?
I think it is risk. I do think that is risky. I mean, we're probably looking at, if you're looking at a perfect world, Paul, you're probably looking at maybe you want to bring in about 4 starters. So if you're bringing in 4 starters, this is on top of a Jota and CCV. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to bring in 4 starters, having 3 of them on loan doesn't, the continuity factor, if they are successful moving into the following season, if you haven't got an option to buy, means that you're constantly going to rebuild. And we like it or lump it, you have seen what can actually happen when you've got a team across the road in the city who have kept their team together. They've made inroads in Europe and ended up in a European final because they haven't got ready like their players at the first opportunity. They've got guys that are there for the long haul, and that's what we're needing to look at. And when I'm talking about long haul, I'm only talking about 2 to 3 seasons. It's going to be very, very rare now. You're going to get a guy who's going to go across, especially somebody that hasn't got a Celtic background, that's going to last longer than 3 seasons in Scotland, especially if they're young enough and they will fancy a crack at the English Premiership or somewhere else. And that's
what a question then. Is Beaton and Rogic the last of a dying breed for you, Kev? You're going to get some guys that come through the ranks like Forrest, like McGregor, maybe Ralston, that could end up being one club men. But people you bring in from other parts of the world like Beaton and Rogic, do you think they're the last of a dying breed in that respect, playing 8-9 years at one club?
They're a strange anomaly, I think, both players to actually have stayed so long at Celtic. And it'd be an interesting look back to see why they lasted so long at Celtic and why they didn't move, especially in Tom Rogic's case. I mean, the big man's been phenomenal for us for patches all over the 9-year, and like possibly this season and under Brendan Rodgers was his best season. But Beaton as well. Beaton always seemed to be that sort of utility guy who was never linked with any moves. You never saw him, even when he was having his purple patch. When he first signed, he was never linked with a big move away, and here was Rodgers. So they could be the last of a breed, yes. But as you say, I mean, we're sitting there having a look at guys like Tony Ralston and Greg Taylor and stuff like that. You can see them being there 5, 6 years, 7 years. You can see them, but some of the foreign lads is a bit different. But though, I'm sure we're maybe going to talk about him. I mean, Giakoumakis, you have a look at him, he's 27. Has the boat been missed with him for his big move? Are we his big move? Are you looking at maybe a sort of Samaras type 5, 6 years from Giakoumakis for us before he moves back to Greece? I mean, you don't know, because he is 27 and he's had 2 seasons where he's been the top goal scorer and the Dutch league and now the Scottish league. He scored a cracking header last night for the Greek national side, an absolute peach. But he's at that age. He's not going to get an elite level move at that age. So we could see Giakoumakis about for maybe 4, 5, 6 years, maybe. That's if he keeps on producing the goods right enough.
I think it's a good point, because next season, something that we have spoken about, Kev, is all these players that came in to Ange's system maybe a wee bit late. And by late, I mean, they've not... In fact, nobody's had a full pre-season under Ange Postecoglou. But you've got guys like Kyogo, O'Reilly, Giakoumakis, people who have been very impressed with, but there is this promise that they're going to be even better next season because they'll get that full pre-season under their belt under Ange Postecoglou. You hope that the injury troubles that at least 2 of those players have had are behind them. So I think, in answer to your question, Giakoumakis, it all depends on what happens next season. If he goes out there next season and scores 30 goals, we're having a different discussion, Kev, because regardless of his age, he's going to have that interest, isn't he? But I'm sure we'll have that discussion in about a year's time. Talking of which, 2 years ago we moved...
Hopefully we'll have that discussion in a year's time. Now that's a discussion that we want to be having, Paul, in a year's time.
You want to be battering off the vultures who are circling Celtic Park for your best players. But 2 years ago we came into the studio. I've only just got the frames up on the wall, Kev. So behind me we've got Primal Scream. We've got the Proclaimers, we've got Billy Connolly. And there's others in here. If you fancy coming in for a visit, you'll see all the others. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the chat. Jungle Lion was first off the mark. Afternoon Troops says Jungle Lion, and afternoon to you. Hopefully all is well over in Ireland. Ridiculizer, not really sure about Kewell's attitude. We'll be talking about Harry Kewell in a second. Seems the type to blame others and not take responsibility just from listening to some of his interviews. Hope to be proved wrong. We've got Jake, if Ange wants Kewell, that's good enough for me. Kewell, just a name at the minute. Let's see how it goes. Hail, hail, Egyptian King. Hail, hail to you, sir. Afternoon all. Paddy Lavery, welcome back. Any news on Jota? Well, that is the big question. And I'm sure when it happens, there will be an unveiling video and all of that hitting the social media channels. When it's going to happen, who knows? But let's talk about Harry Kewell first, because the news broke over the last few days that Harry Kewell would indeed be joining Ange Postecoglou's backroom team, Kevin. He's a player who apparently narrowly missed out on a couple of occasions working with Ange's managerial teams in the past. You'll know him as a player who played over 500 appearances for such teams as Leeds United, which is where I remember him best, Liverpool and Galatasaray, 58 caps for Australia, and a managerial career with spells at Crawley Town, Notts County, Oldham and Barnet. Now, he joins John Kennedy, Gavin Strachan, Steve McManus and Stevie Woods as part of that backroom team, Kevin. Does that mean that he is bolstering that team, or is he going to replace one of those members of staff? There was a rumour that Gavin Strachan was going to go to Dundee, but that obviously they've appointed, I can't remember who they appointed, but they appointed a manager on Friday, so it doesn't look like Gavin Strachan will be moving. Bolstering, maybe? I think it's probably bolstering that backroom staff, and you might see a rejig of some of the roles that some of the staff have actually got. But we didn't know. We didn't know what the staff actually do. There might be some of them whose workload is far too heavy,
and he's just coming in there to take some of that workload off him. And Postecoglou maybe wants him to do a specialised job to come in and do that. I mean, Harry Kewell, as you say, was a fantastic player for Leeds. I'm like you. It's his Leeds day that it's when he was playing for Leeds that I actually do remember him in that fabulous Leeds side of the early 2000s under David O'Leary. Has he got the sort of Damien Duff role, do you think? No remember Damien Duff was highly rated by the young lads within the club as well. He was a sort of modern day hero coming in, a well-kent face for Sky and that.
I think what you've got there as well, Kev, is McManus just appeared on the scene, didn't he? You know, we knew that Kennedy and Starkham were part of the team because they were part of Neil Lennon's team. All of a sudden, McManus bolsters that. But it was almost like a step up, quite a quiet step up into the first team duty. And it does seem, I don't know, I mean, obviously when Eddie Howe was coming to Celtic, he was bringing a busload of backroom team staff members. So maybe it isn't a big backroom team. It just seems a bit loaded when you add another body in there. And I'm not speculating because I've not heard of Strachan or Kennedy's departure. I'm pretty sure that there's enough to be done. Will one of them, i.e. McManus, step back to the B team and work with him? I don't know. But again, there's a point coming through here, and this is the question, I think, from Ben515. Is this Ange finally getting his own backroom staff in? He's done it slowly, he's done it surely. Kev, he's given everybody a chance, but it does look as though he's starting to make those small changes that he has identified over the last year.
It looks that way anyway. I mean, he's been fulsome in his praise of the backroom staff that are already there. But it's bringing in somebody who knows his style. That he must see a knowledge gap somewhere in the back for him to want to bring in Kewell. He wouldn't just bring in Kewell because he wants an ally in Lennoxtown or something like that. He must actually see a knowledge gap where Kewell can actually come in and benefit the dressing room. There's some quite good comments there. I mean, look at the experience that Harry Kewell's got as a player. Manager, you look at some of the clubs that he's managed as well. I'm not going to really like cast up. He's only been at, was it Fleetwood and stuff like that?
Crawley Town, Notts County. His last role at Barnet, he's also been at Oldham. His last role at Barnet, he never won a game. I think it depends because, I mean, he's a big name. So, I mean, has he made this decision a bit like Scott Brown? Scott Brown, I think, could have stayed up in Scotland, right? Probably got a job. I don't know if he may have got a Premier League job in Scotland, Kev. Certainly there's a couple of championship jobs he would have got, but he's decided to take a different path and earn his spurs elsewhere. And it looks, when you look at that journey that Kewell's been on managerially, Crawley Town, Notts County, Oldham and Barnet, you know, I know it's not easy. Henrik Larsson's not really found it easy to get a job. You know, so your name doesn't automatically get you a role in football. I know that he spent some time with Koeman at Barcelona, but he went for the Southport job. He got an interview for the Southport job and didn't get it. Henrik Larsson, Kev. So it's not always as easy as having your own plan in place and then seeing that out. So I guess, I mean, the teams that he's been part of have often been struggling sides.
Well, let's have a look at the teams that he has been part of. I know for a fact, and it's been well publicised, that Oldham Athletic have got massive financial problems. And I think they could be close to actually going out of business. Notts County have been an utter basket case of a club since Sven-Goran Eriksson rocked up with supposedly the richest man in Europe taking them over as well. It's difficult to go down those leagues in England. There's a lot of financial restrictions. There's a lot of clubs that are an absolute basket case, owned by basket case owners. So it's difficult to actually make your name down at that level if you haven't got the resources. Also, Kewell as well came from the English Premier League. He's went down. He's had a so-so managerial career so far, but then he's coming up to be a coach at a club that wants to be elite level. With a coach, with a manager, and Ange Postecoglou, it wants to take the club to elite level. So he'll maybe benefit from working what we've got. Like at Celtic because he's used to working with very, very little, especially at Oldham and Notts County. He's used to working with very, very little. And it's an interesting move. It's a big name, but I don't think he's getting the job because of his name. I really don't think he's getting the job because of his name. He's getting his job. He's getting the job because Ange Postecoglou sees something in him, and he knows that Harry Kewell can bring something to that backroom team that's not there at this precise moment in time. Hope that is. Only time will actually tell.
He definitely rates him highly, Kev, because he's tried to get him a couple of times in his previous roles. And as you say, there's a very specific area that Ange has identified. But like you also say, this could be the perfect move for Kewell to come away from being in the firing line and being the number one, but again, learning his own trade at a club, like you say, who want to be an elite club. Certainly dominate Scottish football and make inroads in the Champions League. Again, by the way, go through Acsom's broadcasts over the last year. There's been very little criticism of John Kennedy. There was a bit of criticism the season before, Kev, I've got to say. But I think across the board, since Celtic have started winning and it's clicked under Ange Postecoglou, very little has been said about the Strachan and Kennedy team. They were very, very much criticised previously. But John Boy comes in. I think Kennedy may fancy managing his own team somewhere, and if so, Ange preparing for this. Listen, it could be the case. And I know that Kennedy's been at Celtic like his entire adult life, Kev, barring a very short loan deal to Norwich. His entire football career's been at Celtic. And I know he's a young man, but he's been there since I think he was 8 years of age. So he's been at Celtic for, 30 years of his life, which is incredible. But there may well come a time. There's been rumours in the past that he was linked to the Hibs job, wasn't he? A few years back. Was that when Jack Ross got it? I think John Kennedy was linked to the Hibs job. There comes a point, or could he be one of those figures, Kev, who is omnipresent but just never the number one? What do you think the future holds for John Kennedy?
John Kennedy's he's a strange one. There's every so often he comes up, as you say, he's been linked with the Hibs job. He was also linked with the Dundee United job before Tam Courts got it. Anybody that you actually speak to in the game says he's a decent coach. He's a good coach. They like him as a coach. They like him as a person. It's well known that Brendan Rodgers wanted to take him to Leicester. And if the rumours are to be believed, that Brendan Rodgers gave him that offer quite a few times during the Neil Lennon's the season that we lost the league. It seemed like Brendan was going to me, you're welcome down here, come down. There's a job for you. So he is highly rated by others in the game. Again, we're just talking about players. It's interesting to see guys staying at clubs for that long, because coaching changes. I always go back to something that Pep Guardiola actually says. He went, after 3 years, the players didn't listen to you anymore. They just get in tune with your voice. So that's where Alex Ferguson was like utterly fantastic. That's how he kept on rejuvenating a team. Because you have to keep on churning the players, because if the players are there for a certain amount of time, players get bored of you.
He did it with his players, and he did it with his backroom team as well, Kev, didn't he, Fergie?
So I can't answer that question. I don't know what John Kennedy's ambition actually is. Is it? You've got to say that his ambition is to be a number one at one point. Does he see that at Celtic? Has he been promised it at Celtic? That was a rumour a wee while ago.
I said he was 38. Would I be right in saying that? Because I know that John Kennedy is quite it's an interesting one with Kennedy, because he was out the game at such a young age. But I'm saying he's 38 years of age. I might have got that wrong, but if that is the case, he still might see this as part of his own apprenticeship. He's only 38, Kev. He's still young in terms of management, isn't he?
Oh, definitely. When you look at what's Postecoglou, 56. So there's 19 years of difference between John Kennedy and Ange Postecoglou. Wow.
I know. He's only a couple of years older than Bruni, who's just moved into his first managerial role. I think that, sometimes when you think of Kennedy, you forget how young he is, because he's been at Celtic so long. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We're not saying that Kennedy must go. It's just that, Kewells came in, and you wonder if that affects the future of anybody else in the backroom team. I'm going to bring up this comment from Rhino Hatati out of Carter Vickers and Jota. For me, Carter Vickers was the main one to get. Really excited for the summer. We had this discussion, Kev, didn't we? Because we thought, history told us anyway, that Celtic struggled to get a centre-half more than they struggled to get one of these flair players, which I think no one would deny. Jota is certainly one of those. So yeah, if I was pushed to say that I had a priority, my priority would have been Carter Vickers, but I've said all along I want both of these players. I want Jota. I don't want to then look back at the market and try and find someone else, bed them in, try and get that consistency, try and get them up to the intensity of Ange Postecoglou's training methods and playing methods as well. So I guess when I'm looking at Jota, I'm thinking to myself, for me, I thought he was the least likely to stay of the two. We've got Carter Vickers in, which is tremendous. How confident are you, Kev, that we're going to get Jota to join him?
I'm very confident. I'm very confident we're going to get Jota to join Carter Vickers. Carter Vickers was the one I was worried about more than anything. Just because, let's not be funny, he made it look so easy up here. And there's probably part of me in the back of my mind going, he's came up here, I mean, last minute of the transfer window, a move. He's came up here, he's utterly sailed it, had a great season. It could have been in the back of his head. He could have went like that. Well, want to Kenson, I've been up there, seen it, done it. I'm going to get a move to a middle. What I've done at Celtic is going to get me a move to a middle order English club. And I'm going to come back and test myself in the Premiership. You could have had the guys in the USA national team telling them, by the way, you need to go and play in the English Premiership if you want to get picked for if you want to get international caps. So that was always my worry. Just because of the late nature of the deal with Carter Vickers. That was almost as if it was forced on him. You're going to Celtic, by the way, like last minute of the window. So to get him done, and for him to sound so enthusiastic as well, which was something, no, remember all the body language experts watching the celebrations and his interviews and stuff like that going, he's no staying because he's no very excited, he's no jumping about and stuff like that. So I was always worried about Cameron Carter Vickers. With Jota, he enjoyed it. He looked like he was enjoying it. Again, we'll just slag the body language experts, but then my confidence in Jota staying was based on his body language. But again, it was always, you still got that worry that he could still be having a conversation with Benfica. He's a Benfica lad. He might be going to Benfica. I want a shot. But if Benfica are telling him it's not on, then he will be coming back here, because I reckon that he knows himself, and if he's getting advised correctly that another season or another two great seasons here, he's getting his move that he's want. He'll have a pick of his moves if he does that.
You get that season, Kev, along with the Champions League exposure. You're absolutely right. That's when the teams that are interested in taking you step up a notch. And that, if he's been advised properly and you hope that he is, then that's, I'm sure, what he'll be getting told.
Let's be honest, Paul. If you want to get a massive move for Celtic next season, you only have to turn up in 6 games, and that's the 6 games in the Champions League.
Yeah, that's true.
That's unfortunately that's it. And
we want them to turn up on a Tuesday night at Dingwall. Of course we do. But you're right, in terms of the big move, that's what people are focusing on. That's the show reel, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Scott Howe brings up international football. Kev, I know you're a bigger fan of it than I. That was embarrassing stuff from Scotland. Fair play to Ireland, though. Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. When it comes to internationals, I think that, I just focus on Celtic players within the internationals, Kev. I think that's pretty fair, seeing how it's a Celtic state of mind. But one of the big plus points, I think, you've already mentioned Giakoumakis' goal. And you asked the question, what does next season hold for Giakoumakis? I mean, no one knows, of course, but you just hope that he's on this progression. He's settled in to what Ange expects. He's turned into a fan's favourite, a bit of a cult favourite. Looks great in that away jersey as well. The other high point for me was Tony Ralston's man of the match performance and goal. It's almost like full circle for Ralston, isn't it? Playing for his country, scoring goals at the back post. And you look at what Giakoumakis could achieve next season. My question for you, Kev, I think Ralston's in a quite unusual situation at the moment. He's had the season of his life. He's topped it off with a tremendous performance for Scotland, scoring a goal, man of the match. But, you ask yourself, what does next season hold for Tony Ralston? Because inevitably he's going to be back up to Juranovic, isn't he?
On paper, yes. He is going to be back up to Juranovic, but then you have a look at the progress he made this season, and you're going like that. Well, what progress can he make next season? We're talking about people getting a full pre-season under Postecoglou after a year. After a year of playing under Postecoglou, what happens if Anthony Ralston actually improves tenfold over the summer?
Well, effectively, this is his second season. Second full season, Kev. Handful of appearances in a few seasons before that, but this is his second full season. He's a first teamer. You don't actually think that he could get any better. You think, right, he's peaked. Let's maintain the levels. What if he does make another step up?
Has he peaked?
Still a young player, you're right.
He is still a young player. I mean, when you're talking about game time, I remember when we signed Dedrick Boyata at 24. There was guys at 19, 20 had played more first team football games than him. So he was young as a football player, but you wouldn't class him as young in age. And Ralston's maybe at that same. Well, I don't know how many games he played for Dundee United or St Johnstone, but you look at the improvement that he made last season, and you're going, well, and he's made that wee step up to international level as well. And you went, well, you've handled that quite well, pal. So you're going, well, what's to stop you actually being the first choice right back at Celtic next season? I mean, there's nothing. If he develops, if he keeps on developing, if the players get better and better. But at this precise moment in time, if we are probably quite rightly going, well, it looked like last season he might have peaked. He might have peaked, but no, you don't actually know. You don't actually know. I mean, he could be phenomenal next season, and we're going to need the squad. Let's not beat about the bush. We've got the number of games that we've got between the start of the season and the break for the World Cup. He is going to get minutes. He
definitely is. He's 23 years of age, Kev. Tony Ralston is 23 years of age. Highly, highly rated player by Brendan Rodgers. I'm allowed to say it because you've already broken the klaxon on that one. He actually played 15 games for Dundee United, a further 15 games for Queen's Park on loan, and 24 games he played for St Johnstone on loan before coming back to Celtic. And he's now played 67 games for Celtic. But as I say, about 17 of them were over a period of 5 years, Kevin, and all of a sudden he's back in the plans last season, and he grabs the bull by the horns, as it were.
I mean, one of my friends, Fraser, he's a St Johnstone fan and goes and watches St Johnstone home and away. And any time that he watches Anthony Ralston, now you're going, that's a completely different player to the one that we had at McDermott Park. He doesn't believe it's the same player.
But remember Johnny Proctor, the Dundee United fan, who was on Schema Celica with you, said that Ralston was a decent player for Dundee United. So there's a wee plug for Schema Celica. Your latest episode went out last night, Kev. Tell us a wee bit about it and who you had on.
Yes, it went out last night. The feedback's been utterly fantastic. Thank you for everybody who has watched it. I'm on it with Kevin Miles. Kevin Miles is my guest, and we talk. Kevin, who obviously wrote Celtic, My Heart and My Soul, who had a previous life in a heavy metal band called Yashin, who went on tour with Papa Roach and Limp Bizkit. So anybody in the comments who says that we don't talk about heavy metal, that Screamer Celica's for you.
Who's Francie?
Aye, who's Francie? Aye, because the last 25 minutes is we talk about Limp Bizkit, we talk about Papa Roach. We also talk about Alanis Morissette as well.
But we know that Alanis Morissette's got links to Celtic. Via Tom Campbell.
Via Tom Campbell. Aye, we do. So, have a wee watch it. It's a great discussion. We talk about the 94-95 season and winning the Scottish Cup that year in Hampden, and we just have a blather, just have a reminisce.
Yeah, it's a great concept. It's actually, I think it's episode 28, but it's the third episode that we've fully produced in the studio, Kev, following on from David F. Ross and Johnny Proctor. The
comments are already coming that they're not metal. I kent that was going to happen, and Limp Bizkit. I kent that was going to come in as soon as I says the word metal.
Limp Bizkit?
Limp Bizkit, aye. And Papa Roach. I think
there's skateboard metal.
I'm not in that scene, Paul, so I didn't really ken the different genres of metal, but
I've seen a few of them. I was doing it at Reading in 2000. I've said this numerous times because I missed the 6-2 game because I was in Reading Festival watching Rage Against the Machine. And there was all these kind of bands like that. I mean, Slipknot were playing. What category are they in? What genre of music is Slipknot? I'm not even sure. They were rotten. Talking to music, though, very quickly, we'll get back to the football. Kevin and I always bang on about Michael Head and the Red Elastic Band. Michael Head released his first record. It was a single 40 years ago, 1982, under his first band, the Pale Fountains. And this week, or just at the end of last week, he recorded his first top 10 entry ever in the UK charts with his latest album, Dear Scott. He did join us for an unplugged session, Kev. You and I and the team went down to Liverpool and recorded that. It was just, I guess it was, to use his own term, a bit of kismet, because it was just everything coming together at once. It was meant to be. We had the session. He gets to number 6 in the charts. Michael Head, hopefully now we'll get some of the recognition that he hasn't always had, Kev. So if you've not heard, get on the channel and listen to our session, and if you enjoy that, go and buy his record, because he's an absolute legend and a genius as well. Kev.
Paul, we're getting asked to elaborate on the Alanis Morissette link.
All right, Danny. Basically what happened was, Tom Campbell, Tom moved over at a young age to Canada to be a teacher, school teacher, English teacher. He went on to become, in my opinion, the finest Celtic author ever. I think he's the best writer. There are better historians than him. He would admit that himself, Kev. I think Pat Woods is up there with the best of historians. But in terms of the writing, he's an amazing writer, as Tom. And you've probably read his books, The Glory and the Dream being the biggest selling book, the centenary one. But he's written, I think, about 13 or 14 now. Anyway, he was Alanis Morissette's English teacher over in Canada. And he was very, very friendly with Alanis Morissette's mum and dad. Used to have to let her leave school early for singing lessons and gigs, because she was in a wee band back then. I don't know if they were a rock or a metal band, Kev. I don't want to get into that.
No.
But Tom believes, and I've yet to find a lyric, that there's a lyric in an Alanis Morissette song that refers to him, because he used to peer over his glasses when he was asking her a question, or when she was writing lyrics when she should have been paying attention. And he believes Morissette wrote a lyric about Tom Campbell, the Celtic historian. So there's the link. There is always a link, Kev. There is always a link. Now, we're in a pre-season, so there's loads of players being linked to Celtic, and I'm going to run through a few and focus on one of them, Kev, because there's so many. Every day there's a new player. I'm more interested in the type of player that we're being linked with, the position that they are playing. It gives you an idea of where we're looking to strengthen. But let's have a wee look at a couple of players who have left. Now, last week we spoke about Vasilis Barkas, and we had a bit of a laugh about Barkas and how he had been an absolute flop. And I looked on the Facebook page, check us out, Celtic State of Mind. There's about 18,000 people on the page. And somebody came on and said, gave us a row for being negative. And I'm thinking, come on. See, back in the day, Kev, right, when you went to the game and you would buy the Not the View, and on the back it, they embarrassed the hoops. Now, it would actually tell you about a player who was rotten for Celtic. And members of that player's family might be at the game buying the fanzine. But it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I mean, we're football fans. You can say when a player's been rotten. What were we going to do? Run a show really of Barkas' finest moments as a Celtic goalie? And we were getting called negative for that. Come on, man. he was rotten, right? And that's just the bottom line. The other player who will be on his way has got interest from Serie A, and it's Karamoko Dembele. Apparently he's going to be offered in the region of a £1 million contract, Kev, to go to, is it Lecce, who's just been promoted to Serie A. And I look at the kind of career trajectory of Dembele. I think it's a fantastic move. Get yourself away to sunnier climes and do the business elsewhere. Prove yourself. Prove that you're one of these European golden boys, Kev. Do you think he will? Do you think that Dembele's progress has been kind of halted at such a young age that he'll never get back onto that kind of track? What's your thoughts on Dembele?
No, I think he's young enough, and I do think he's got the natural talent to get himself back on that bus, but he has to work at it. And I also think, like, I talk about credit in the bank, and I think he's young enough and he's still got enough credit in the bank that he will get a move. He will get a decent move, because people will just look at it and go, right, he's a young lad, it just hasn't worked out. He had a serious leg break last year, which probably stymied his Celtic career, ended his Celtic career, and they will take a chance on him. And going to Italy, I mean, you can just have a look at Liam Henderson, who's another hero and a star out there. We had every Italian team that he's played for, they've all loved him. All the Italian fans have loved him. Aaron Hickey as well. The Bologna fans absolutely adore Aaron Hickey as well. So it's an interesting move for him, and I hope it's a move that actually does come off for him, because I mean, it just hasn't worked out for him. It just hasn't worked out on him at Celtic. And again, it's the perils of these guys getting thrust into the limelight really early. He was 13 when he was thrust into the limelight, getting called generational talents and stuff like that. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. This is why the amount of pressure that gets put on guys to sign professional contracts at 16 is quite frightening. The amount of money that actually is getting offered now, and the amount of money that's getting offered to these young laddies and their family at that age. Whereas I didn't believe that you can tell if a guy's going to be a professional football player at 16. I do not believe. I still think there's a lot of development to go on there, and I just think, like, hasn't worked out for Dembele, but good luck for him. Good luck to whatever he does in the future, and I hope he has a decent career that his talent actually deserves. But I think there's a whole wider picture here of how we deal with young talent in Scotland and the decisions that we make on young laddies at 16, 17, where I didn't believe that you can actually tell if they're going to be super. There's no many Wayne Rooneys where you knew, where the Everton coaches knew, where nearly everybody in England knew, by the way, this boy is going to make it.
But the thing is, Kev, I've over the piece, not just on Acsom, but on some of the other shows that we do record on A State of Mind, I've spoken to a lot of football coaches who are not a fan or not fans of pro youth. They're not fans of the academy system. They're not fans of these players who, if they've not been signed up by an academy by 16 years of age, they're lost to the game. And it's like you say, they might not actually develop until they're 17, 18 and so on. And that's been the case forever. You go back, even Ian Wright, I think he played his first senior game for Crystal Palace at 21, something like that. There's been a lot of players that have came. McAvenny was quite late to the game. McAvenny was late to the game as well. But I always remember when Karamoko Dembele came into the Celtic side, almost in the same breath, you used to hear the name Islam Feruz. And it was always, I hope he doesn't turn up like Islam Feruz. There's been players like that throughout the years in football, not just in Scottish football. Sonny Pike, JP Mason mentioned Sonny Pike a couple of weeks ago. If you can't remember Sonny Pike, look him up. There's a great interview actually that James English did on YouTube recently with him. He was the guy that was playing for Ajax when he was like 12 or something. He was on a McDonald's advert, Kev. Never kicked a professional football in his life. But at that point they had him up here. He had a contract, a football boot contract, all that stuff. I think he now drives taxis. There's been that amount of pressure put on a lot of these guys, and then before you know it, they're on the scrap heap. Let's hope Dembele gets a good move. Let's hope it works out for him. There's a few players that leave the club and you think, they're going to go on and kick on. And I think everybody with a set of eyes knew that Van Dijk was going to. I think Frimpong was going to be one of these players as well, Kev, Tierney. And you kind of hope that Dembele, in one way or another, maybe a couple of moves down the line, can prove any of the doubters wrong as well. I'm going to run through some of the names, Kev, because I did this other week there, and you just said yes, no, because, I mean, they're just a list of names. That's all they are, aren't they? But, you know, the one that jumps out at me on this list, and I'm going to see, I've got 8 names here. These are players that have been linked to Celtic in the last week. Left back. Then we've got centre back, centre mid, defensive mid, centre back. So you get an idea of the types of positions that we're looking for. But the one that really stands out for me at the moment is Ko Itakura, the Man City player who's been out on loan in the Netherlands. But the reports that are coming through is that if Celtic want to sign this player, it's going to cost them, upwards of £5 million. And this goes back to the conversation you and I had just the other week about how big a transfer window this might be. You reckon we might need 4 players over and above Carter, Vickers and Jota should we do the Jota deal. That's the region that we're looking at, Kev. £5 million for one of those players. So before you know it, if we get Jota and Carter Vickers in the door plus Itakura, then you're touching 20 million already. You've only got 3 players in. And that's, I guess, what I was asking. Should we utilise the loan market slightly differently? Do you think we'll still be able to pick up a couple of £2 million gems? Because that seems to have been Ange's MO in his first season.
It does seem to be Ange's MO, but then clubs will get wise to that when we come in for players, and they'll get wise to that Postacoglu's looking at certain markets.
And he's got a few quid in his pocket now as well.
If you're going to Man City, you are paying £4-5 million for one of their reserve players.
Yeah,
that is just the market that is just the market they operate in. As Martin Bickett comes in and says there, £5 million, we paid that for Barkas and Ayeti as well, eh? So, I mean, you're talking about if we sign Carter Vickers is in, Jota comes in, that's 12 million. You're then probably looking at how do you finance the other deals, what money's up front. Stuff like that, but then £5 million for a centre half is not a lot of money. But as you say, can you see us spending 25-30 million? No, because we've never really done it without bringing in a fair whack. Yes, folk point out that you spent 25 million last season or whatever it was. But we brought in 40. So. The money
we were £10 million up on the bottom line of that, you know.
I mean, the money that we've brought in that we need for Cameron Carter, Vickers, and Jota is already there. It's already sitting in the bank.
I don't even think we've spent the Frimpong money. Let's be honest.
No, probably no.
You know,
did we ever spend the Rodgers money that we got from his compensation, the £9 million? Did we ever spend that?
It's in the bank. Going further back, Ronnie Dyler. Ronnie's on the move. And it shouldn't really come as a surprise that he was a man in demand. Blackburn Rovers wanted to bring him back to Britain, Kev. Standard Liège won the race for the New York City manager. Do you think we've got more appreciation of Ronnie Dyler in hindsight than we did at the time?
Of course, in hindsight, aye. I'm pleased that he's actually went to Belgium rather than Blackburn. Blackburn, again, another one of these clubs that if you're an avid reader of When Saturday Comes, they're in it all the time. As a club, it's just badly run. I mean, they're owned by the Venky's family, and you just have to have a look what happened to Tony Mowbray at the end of last season. Mowbray's press conference where he says, well, I don't know what's actually going to happen. So I'm glad that he's went to Liège. Obviously, I don't pay any attention to Belgian football, so I don't know if they're run by a box of frogs or they're a decent young club. I do not know, but I want to see Ronnie have success. I really do. I was pleased for him when he went to New York and they won the championship or whatever it was that they won. We have got a better appreciation of Ronnie Dyler now. And that was down to Brendan Rodgers as well, turning a lot of Ronnie Deila players into invincible treble winners. And treble winners, and double treble winners, and quadruple treble winners.
The man in the mask, the captain, Callum McGregor, I think was saved by Ronnie Deila. It looked as though his Celtic career wasn't getting started. We've been talking about players coming into the team late. Callum McGregor was 21, Kev, when he made his debut for Celtic under Ronnie. The previous manager, Neil Lennon, had actually been involved in talks with Carlisle United to try and sell him for 300 grand. And you look at that, and you look at Ronnie coming and saying, wait a minute, there's a player here and I can develop him, I can utilise him. If you look at some of the earlier performances of Callum McGregor under Ronnie Deila and you compare that player to the one that we've got now, they're two completely different players. Just, I'm talking not just the performance standard, I'm talking the style of play. Completely different player. Remember, McGregor was always doing a shimmy, always trying to take a player on. You remember? And he's completely changed. And I think that a massive part of that was down to Rodgers. And I hope that he continues to develop under Ange Postecoglou. But it looks as though Ronnie is on the move. Here's another one from Jungle Lion, the one and only Paul McGrath. Absolutely, he was 22 when he made his debut for Manchester United, Kev. Paul McGrath. So, these players are out there, and a lot of the time, though, if they haven't been picked up, they're not part of the pro youth system, they're not with an academy, they're lost to the game entirely. And I think that's something that Scottish football really needs to take a look on. I mean, people say, well, it works in this country or it works in this country. I don't think that we are producing the swathes and swathes of talent that we should in Scottish football. And again, I'm doing that based on the discussions I'm having with coaches that are at that level, Kev. They're at the coalface. They can actually see the players and the talent that's there.
Aye, but there seems to be an interest in Scottish players, Paul, which hasn't been there for years. I mean, the Aberdeen guy, Calvin Ramsey, getting linked with Liverpool. Hickey now getting... It's
a done deal, isn't it?
Is it?
Did your man Fabrizio Romano, did he not confirm it the other night?
I don't know. I can't Aberdeen.
I know you get a few DMs for him from time to time.
Nobody slides into my DMs, Paul. Not at all. That's not allowed. I mean, and there seems to, you see the amount of talent that have been took for Celtic at 16, 17-year-old as well. So there is an interest in what the Scottish academies are doing, but I'll take your word on it that there is coaches working on it. It just says they players aren't there anymore. So there must be. They reckon
the players are there.
Oh, they're there.
They don't develop into first-team players. So they're looking at the talent base and saying, we've got the talent, but the system we've got in place, i.e. Pro Youth, isn't utilising it. It's not harnessing it, and it's not getting them from being a great youth player to being a first-team footballer. So they reckon we've got the talent. And I mean, they're taking these guys all over Europe, Kevin, playing in tournaments, and Scottish teams are winning these tournaments and really competing with clubs that on an international level put Scotland into the absolute shadows, So that's the concern. It's almost as if there's an age gap of between maybe 16 and 19 where we stop developing. And that's the bit. And all these guys, like you say, I think they've maybe identified it, their parents or their agents have identified it, so that when a Bayern Munich or a Liverpool, Blackburn, Watford, all these teams come in, they're gone. They just leave Scottish clubs, which is pretty sad.
It's interesting going to the English academy system though as well, which is possibly worse than the pro youth system in Scotland, because there is a statistic that 97% of players who sign a contract with an English Premier League academy never kick a professional football.
Wow.
First team football with an English Premier League team. And it drops down to 70% because some of them move down the leagues. So I think that overall there's 97% of people who sign with English Premier League academies will never kick a ball in an English Premier League game.
That's incredible.
That's a frightening statistic.
It is. We've seen Cameron Carter-Vickers looking absolutely enthralled in the new Celtic away jersey. I thought back to the original photo shoot from 1992 when it was Gary Gillespie and Brian O'Neill modelling the beautiful Umbro original, Kev, and I've got to ask you the question, do you prefer the original or the remake?
I'm a Celtic dad. I'm going to need to say the original.
What do you love more about the original than the Adidas version?
The fact that it didn't have a plain back.
Right. That's one of the big criticisms.
The collar sums up that 1992 time as well. The sort of flappy collar.
Nice wee button.
Aye, and just the fact that we were utterly dross at that time and had the smartest kit in the league.
We were dross. I remember us wearing it against Stirling Albion at Firhill in the Cup. Were you at that game? I was behind the goals and Pat McGinley scored from an important... He scored...
Yes, I was. I
remember
was
he scored it, and at the time, I don't know if it was ever captured on camera, I thought it was like Marco van Basten's goal against Russia in the European Championships final, but it was Pat McGinley against Stirling Albion at Firhill. So I don't know if you're allowed to actually compare the two, Kev. But when he scored it, that's what I immediately thought the goal reminded me of.
I mean, it's quite weird. Brian O'Neill, I can get why he would model a kit, but Gary Gillespie is a strange choice.
He pulled up during the photo shoot, Gary Gillespie. But of course, what we did is the first season was the vintage version of that jersey because we had no sponsor. The following season, we added the white CR Smith. So there's two versions of the original, both of which appear in the Celtic jersey, which will be available in all good bookshops in October. Ange's contract is back in the news, Kev, because Sky Sports reporter Anthony Joseph, very good reporter, a man of a huge reputation, and I think he's a Celtic fan. Anyway, he says that it's a case of when, not if, Ange Postecoglou signs an extension to his deal based on the fact that we've done it with every manager going right back to Tony Mowbray, and actually I think Martin O'Neill was mentioned in the report. So he reckons it is inevitable that Ange Postecoglou is going to sign that extension to his contract, Kev. Does that change your view? Because we had a good discussion about this other week, didn't we?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change my view. I mean, I like the rolling contracts. I didn't see a problem with the rolling contracts. This is just Celtic cementing their position, giving Ange Postecoglou a bit more cash, and also getting the compensation in concrete, basically. That's what this is, But contracts mean nothing nowadays, Paul. Brendan Rodgers walked out on one,
He did, but the thing is, you're protecting yourself.
Aye.
So I know what you mean, that if you're on a rolling contract, you wake up every day and you've got a year. Therefore, there will be some kind of compensation attached to that should a Leicester City or anybody else come in for your services. However, if you've got somebody tied down to a 3 or 4 year deal, that compensation is a bigger amount. I also love Ange Postecoglou to bits, totally believe in him, totally buying into him. But him sitting here just now talking about the fact that he doesn't really look at things like contracts and all that is all fair and well, Kev. But we sat and we totally bought into Brendan Rodgers and we thought he was a messiah. You were talking about him getting a statue in front of Celtic Park. It's true. It's true. Brendan Rodgers was the messiah. He could do no wrong, right?
Aye,
well, he walked out on us.
Aye, but my statue thing was Brendan would be picturing where his statue would go.
What would he be doing in the statue, though? Would he be on a throne or something? Or would he be talking to Danny McGrath?
Or would he be standing there like the infamous, what was it, B in Liverpool when he had the free envelopes? Would he be standing there with free envelopes?
I know, reciting Spanish team talks.
Aye.
No, but you go from a guy who was born into Celtic and, walking onto the Celtic Park turf and going on about when Tommy Burns told me that story and all that kind of stuff. All that, because that happened, all that theatrical stuff, right? To Terminado and then leaving in the middle of the night. I'm not saying it scarred me for life, Kev, but you get them tied down. There's going to be vultures circling Celtic Park if we have a similar season to the one we've just had, or better. Imagine we do something in the Champions League and we've only got the man on a 1 year deal.
I know, but I think that goes back to what I actually says. I says, I'm quite happy. The contract means nothing.
It's been worse. I thought that was all right.
I thought it was fine as well. I've had worse days. No, it's just, as you say, and I says this when we spoke about it previously, it's just the club tying down their position. It's putting the club's hand like out there going like, well, we've tied them down now, and this is a compensation. It also says it probably doesn't mean nothing to Postecoglou whatsoever. It means something to his wife because she'll get a couple of more shekels to actually spend. But it probably means nothing to him. But he knows that he's probably protecting the club, and if he ever does decide to go, I'm not worried about Postecoglou leaving. I'm not worried about Postecoglou leaving. Yeah, I might be, or hopefully I'm worried about Postecoglou leaving at this point next year.
Because it means we've been a success.
Yes.
Absolutely. One last word, and we should really mention Gary Gillespie again because he has filtered into our conversation today, Kev. But when we were doing the Neely Mockin documentary way back, 7 years ago now actually, you can still watch that on Amazon Prime. Young Neely, gave me a few home videos, right, of the fact that I think he got a camcorder in the 90s when it was like pretty trendy, when there were big massive things like you're working for the BBC walking about, and he basically had the run of Celtic Park because his dad had worked there for 40 years, and he used to go up, and there's some amazing footage on these home tapes, and I do remember one of them is Neely walks down the tunnel when he goes onto the park, and it's the Harris fencing and that's up at the jungle because they're about to tear it down, but they're doing a training drill on the park. And it's like Tommy Burns' first pre-season. So they started the pre-season at Celtic Park. I don't know how much they did there before they went to Hampden. And you've got Tommy and Billy Stack and all that. And Gillespie's basically spends the entire time just doing stretches. He's lying on the ground just like pulling his calf and pulling his toes and that. And I remember looking at him going, £1 million, £1 million for him, right? I mean, obviously he never played under Tommy Burns because he freed him. I think he went to Coventry after that. But I really must ask Neely for the footage again and get it maybe on the YouTube channel. It's brilliant. There's a great bit. Tommy Burns comes down the tunnel. So the players are all out there going through their paces and that. I think, Brian Scott would have been there, maybe Frank Connor. I'm not sure if old Neely was there. But Tommy comes down, and Neely's wee boy, who's probably 2, is just running about, and Tommy just picks him right up, and cuddles him in and just walks about with the bairn. You know what I mean? And you're like, there's the man, the great Tommy Burns. But the first thing he did was pick up Neely Mockin's grandson, also Neely, and cuddle him in. Brilliant. But I really must get that footage because I love all that kind of stuff, and no many people will have seen it, but we could maybe put it on our YouTube if Neely agrees to that.
Definitely, aye.
And you can all watch Gary Gillespie going through his paces, whilst every other buddy on the park is actually building up a sweat. So Kev never really built up a sweat there. That was all right, Kev. That was tame.
No, that's fine. I mean, you when you were talking about Gary Gillespie there warming up, it just took me back to my Sunday League days when you were sent out for a warm up as a sub, and you just didn't bother. You just maybe.
Did you ever get sent to warm up and then never got on? Did you ever have that?
Every week, every single week.
I feel sorry for you, mate. Maybe you're just rotten, like Barkas. Anyway, we can say that.
I was.
Thanks everybody for getting involved. If you've watched this on YouTube, then like the video, give us a big thumbs up. I messed up the algorithm the other week, so we need to start building it up again. I messed it up by deleting 100 videos, Kev, as you do. But give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share it, retweet it, do all of that kind of stuff. And you will be in store for some tremendous footage and video features, etc. Brilliant interview the other week where Richard Jobson talks about Celtic, St. Pauli, punk, pop culture, all that kind of stuff. That's coming up. And of course, you will be able to watch Schema Celica with our very own Kevin Graham. All that's left for me to say is, Kev, thank you once again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.